Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the State of the Program series brought to you by the Crossover U College Hoops Talk podcast. My name is Kanaye and I'm joined with Joshua Sheldon. And today we're going to be talking about the Purdue Boilermakers and their state of the program going into this next college basketball season. Really solid year following the departure of Zach Edey. A lot of people doubted if this program could continue to be a national championship contender following his departure. And I got to say, I think they proved a lot of people wrong. Braden Smith proved to be the best point guard in the country, winning the Bob Cousy Award. TKR was also, and that being Trey Kaufman-Renn, was also an All-American honorable mention. They're bringing both those guys back. They're bringing back Fletcher Lawyer, who's going to be continue to bring knockdown shooting for them. And they've also loaded up in the portal too. They've lost some guys, but they've got some guys from both the portal and overseas. So I'm really excited to see how this crew plays for Matt Painter this year. And we're going to talk about what they've lost, what they've added. We're going to talk about Matt Painter. We're going to talk about where they stack up in the Big Ten and the vibes going to next year. But before we get into all of that, if you like this podcast or anything else you see on this channel, please engage with our content any way you can. Liking the video, subscribing to our channel really does help with being able to continue to grow what we do here at the Crossover. So let's start off with the losses. Most notable in terms of what they've lost in the portal was Miles Colvin and Cameron Heide, I believe. I know more Purdue fans, I'm sure Josh can speak on this, definitely felt a bigger loss. The bigger loss was Camden Heide, my mistake. Just considering that he brought a lot of energy off the bench for them this past year. And I definitely think that if he were to stay, he probably could have continued to fill a really good role of being that kind of athlete, defender. And kind of the same deal with Miles Colvin. I definitely think he has a chance to break out of Wake Forest. But at the end of the day, I honestly don't think that Purdue lost too much. I don't think it was completely dire that they got those guys back. But it definitely does hurt to lose some of your program guys that you've had for several years.
Yes. Colvin and Heidi were both supposed to be the next generation of Boilermakers. They were, at least in my opinion, as a student, they were supposed to replace the roles of Smith and Moore once they graduate next year. They didn't really want to wait. They decided to join very new programs that are looking for backup starters and bench guys to take over the place. Fair enough. But I don't think the points per game and the minutes per game really show how much is being lost by Purdue. This is not a devastating loss, but it is a shame to lose these guys and also a player like Will Berg, who fit more like that backup center that without Jalen Jacobson last year, definitely relied on him a lot more. He definitely could have had a larger standpoint and probably could have played well onto his senior year, but he decided to also hit the portal. I would personally rate this as an 8.5 out of 10 on our full scale. It's not horrible, but I think it's more or less the potential that's being lost rather than the current points per game or impact that we're going to be seeing next year.
Yeah, I definitely hear you out in terms of the points per game isn't necessarily telling of what you guys are losing. If you strictly look at what these guys put up stats-wise, then you might be thinking Purdue's really losing nothing at all. But again, I think it is important to note that these guys were important to your culture, guys having the continuity, guys who could have been the next Purdue greats if they were to stick around. I personally had them at a 7 out of 10 for this. Would you come up to an 8?
I think an 8 is a fair one.
8? Yeah. All right, so an 8 out of 10 for that. Of course, just to clarify, 10 for all of these metrics is the best score you can get. So 1 would be the worst. Purdue is a 8 out of 10, my mistake. Just because, they're not bulletproof in terms of what they lost, but it isn't the end of the world by any means whatsoever. So now let's get into their ads. This is where it gets really exciting for Purdue. I actually do think it's probably more exciting to talk about what they got back. That being Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman-Renn, and Fletcher Lawyer. That class of rising seniors has been absolutely instrumental to what this program has been the last 3 years. To be a 1 seed for their first 2 seasons in college basketball, come back and have the seasons where without Zach Edey, the first season without Zach Edey, where they all kind of take a leap in a way. Braden Smith now being a first-team All-American, Trey Kaufman-Renn being an honorable mention. You get essentially 2 All-Americans back. I think that really puts you ahead of the rest of the pack in terms of retention. I mean, you're right up there with Houston, probably honestly maybe above, just considering you're getting 2 All-American players back. And you keep Fletcher Lawyer, who's, if we're being realistic here, I don't think any of those three guys were really ever seriously considering entering the transfer portal. But in a way, they are kind of, I'm sure they're being compensated fine in West Lafayette, but they are in a way taking a pay cut to stick with Purdue, where if they were to hit the portal, they could probably go to any blue blood high major program and make probably 1 to 2 million more than what they could be possibly getting at Purdue. But again, I'm sure they're being compensated fine. They're there they're there to win. That's the most important thing for those three guys, and they've experienced everything you possibly can see in college basketball at this point in their college careers. But on top of that, what the also very exciting part for Purdue's offseason is adding guys like Oscar Clough from South Dakota State, Liam Murphy from North Florida, who I think is going to play a great role off the bench. And on top of that, you're adding two freshmen, Antoine West, who will probably be in a smaller role this year, but a guy who could end up breaking the starting lineup is Omer Meyer, who is coming over as an international player. And I'm really excited to see him play. I'll let Josh talk about some of these ads.
Yeah, I think once again, and big pat on the back for Painter and the rest of the Purdue program for keeping a guy like Kaufman Red and Braden Smith and to a lesser extent Fletcher Lawyer in the fold. TKR and Smith both could have been draft picks if they wanted to go for it. They could have transferred him, made a ton of money at any other program. Kanaye is completely correct, but it is Purdue we're talking about. The continuity has always been there, and the biggest success is keeping your best guys around. So that's great. They can have their senior year together, which I think is a little bit wholesome if you're going to ask me, but also everything Purdue needs. And for the first time in Painter's history, he's going into the portal. He picked up Oscar Clough, who actually does have previous Power 5 experience playing in the Pac-12 2 years ago. And then Omar Meyer, an Israeli prospect, who, like I said before, can break that starting five line. He's a top international prospect. He can definitely fill any role you need, and he will likely be in the forward, maybe even shooting guard spot, given what they want to do with Fletcher Lawyer going into the future. I think this is one of the best incoming transfer classes that Purdue's ever had, probably the best, considering they don't use the portal that often. And Omar Meyer is one of the best international prospects. So I'm going to give this likely a 9, but I could totally see a 10, depending on how
Yeah, I mean, I also have them as a 9. I think the one thing that would have put them at a 10 for me is if they were able to kind of address the need of getting an athletic guy to play at the two, the wing, who could defend at a high level and bring some athleticism. That's a one knock to this Purdue roster right now. I think they lack athleticism. I very much feel that they kind of needed another sort of Lance Jones type of guy. And I think what would have been great for them to get was Kennard Davis Jr., who ended up committing to BYU. In my eyes, he's coming from the SLU program that Lance Jones came from before he transferred to Purdue. But in my eyes, Kennard Davis Jr. could have been the Michael Jordan of Lance Jones's if he were to be in a Boilermaker uniform going into this year. But again, I just think that's the one thing that worries me about this roster is kind of the lack of athleticism and defense on the perimeter. I think they're great in the front court between Oscar Clough, Daniel Jacobson, and TKR. And of course, you know what they have with their backcourt of Fletch, Braden Smith, and I'm sure Omer Meyer will be really productive if he is in that starting role. At what he brings as a shooter and off the catch, and I'm sure he can get into mid range a little bit. But again, it's just that there's no one on this roster that necessarily screams glue guy kind of defense and athleticism. And I think CJ Cox has a chance to be that off the bench. I think that is the best case scenario for Purdue, but we kind of necessarily haven't seen it out of him just yet. I think he has a chance to get to this point this season. I do like how he stuck around and is staying the course here in West Lafayette. I think he has a chance to be that Lance Jones for them this year. But again, we'll see if he's in a starting role or coming off the bench. But yeah, I'd have him as a 9 too.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. There is a good amount of depth in this program, which isn't surprising. Purdue is always known for their depth, but both the starting five and any sixth, seventh, or eighth man coming off the bench can really perform well. I do get to talk about a Purdue guy. I think Liam Murphy is my choice to fill in that possible role, but still out there to decide. Moving on to coaching, I think this is a very similar experience to pretty much what we were seeing last year, what we've seen the past few years. Painter's in his prime. He made a natty 2 years ago, Sweet 16 last year. He's made a lot of tournaments in his previous decade. Actually, he's been here for such a long time. It's hard to forget any time before he was here. No offense, and I think that this is going to be another slam dunk season. I don't know if this is anything better than the Edie era. I think that was probably Painter's prime in terms of coaching uh, group, but he's great at developing players. I mean, Daniel Jacobson, that 7'3" prospect who broke his leg at the start of the year and is finally going to get a healthy season this upcoming year, can be a person that Painter can mold. He's always known for producing that high level, high leverage center play or power forward play. Coffin Wren definitely feels that role before so well nowadays and could slot in and out of the five with Oscar Clough, depending on how he wants to run his offense. So give me a 10. I'm not going to be biased in that one. That is just an easy one to choose.
Yeah, I think I'm also going to go with the 10 for this. I just think all those points you hit on are exactly parts of the reason why. I think on top of that, just the culture of continuity that he's built with Purdue, having that core of Braden, Fletcher, and Trey Kaufman-Renn. I think it's so great to see those. I mean, there's really not a lot of programs around these days with NIL and the transfer portal that have one homegrown talent, a lot of guys that come from in-state, and two guys that they're able to keep around for 3-4 years now, which is what we're seeing with that core here at Purdue, and just to have them come back and to watch them grow from what they were as freshmen, where Braden and Fletcher were honestly weaknesses maybe to that Purdue team that was a 1 seed that lost in the first round that year. I just don't know if they were ready at that point in their careers to have that much pressure on them in the backcourt and to come back that next year and be more prepared. And then now we see them grow to where Braden is a first team All American, best point guard in the country. Fletcher is a established shooter playing on the wing. Trey Kaufman-Renn is right on the cusp of being on an All American team. I think it's so cool to see. And that just the credit goes to Matt Painter and how he's able to the player development there he's built and how he's able to retain guys, keep them happy, keep them playing at a high level. And I got to give him credit. He went into the portal when, like you mentioned, he really never does. I really do like the ads he got, like how he went overseas to try out an international prospect in Omer Meyer. Super excited to see how he performs. But yeah, I definitely go with a 10 here too.
I think another big talk and great thing from this one is the conference play. Um, Big Ten is supposed to be another very physical year. Michigan, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, they all feel like contenders. But I think Purdue kind of has a stand above the rest type of role as of right now. They've always been dominant the past 2 to 3 years. I think this could be a really easy season for Purdue to win the Big Ten and likely the Big Ten tournament, depending on how things go. Um, I think I'll give this probably a 9, maybe a 10.
I'm willing to lean more towards 10. I honestly
Yeah.
think I have a tough time seeing anyone in the Big Ten really match Purdue this year in both the regular season and the tournament. Of course, anything can happen in that. But at least throughout the course of a long regular season in league play, I have a tough time seeing anyone stack up with Purdue. And I mean, Mackey's going to be popping. That's such a tough place to win. I would honestly, I mean, we talked about in our last episode talking about Houston and the state of that program. Definitely check that video out if you haven't already. We talked about how Houston maybe has separated themselves a little bit, but BYU kind of is knocking on the door. I don't think that necessarily is the case with Purdue here. I think Purdue kind of has separated themselves a little bit more than some of the other teams in different leagues. So I'm
Sure.
willing to go 10 here.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And then in terms of vibes, you had it there, Mackey popping. I think this is one of the best times to be a Boilermaker. There's been so much of an outpour for the desire for this team to do well. Obviously, just making the national championship and losing it 2 years ago, very fresh in a lot of Boilermakers' minds and a lot of these players' minds, a lot of the coaching minds. There is this desire to return. 20 last year was a not a fluke or anything, but it was nice. There were slip ups towards the end. There was that Sweet 16 game that honestly could have allowed Purdue to reach a Final Four had they not had those last minute shenanigans at the ends, which fair enough. Maybe they'll get those shot at Houston at the end of the year. But this gives, I think, Purdue probably a 9. Once again, maybe a 10 on the vibes list. I think that there have been better years recently in terms of hope for winning a natty, but in, once again, in terms of recent memory, this is one of the best times to be a Boilermaker in terms of the college basketball sphere.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do think vibes are really, really high in West Lafayette. I mean, this has the chance to be one of the perfect storybook endings we've seen to the careers of any player in college basketball. Those guys being, like we talked about so much in this episode, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lloyd, Trey Kaufman-Renn. For one, being through all that they've been through in their careers at Purdue, to be able to come out on top and win a national championship, where this year we're thinking it kind of is natty or bust for Purdue right now, just because we don't know. Of course, it's different with the transfer portal now, but if Painter sticks to his ways of kind of home growing talent and kind of straying away from the transfer portal, we don't know when the next time Purdue is going to be this talented going into a preseason as they are right now. And on top of that, the Final Four is in Indianapolis this year. So what better would it be to go and win a natty in your home state? And I just think that would, again, be one of the greatest storybook endings to college, to a player's college career, or careers, I should say, with three guys now that we're talking about, that we anyone's really ever seen. And again, they're really talented going into preseason. I'm not going to argue with you if you have them preseason number one. It could either be them or Purdue, or Houston, I should say. And again, you're bringing back two All-Americans. Mackey's going to be popping every game, one of the toughest places to play in the country. You hear all the former Big Ten players in the NBA now always talk about how tough it was to play at Mackey while they were in college. And I think that should be no different this year. So I'm honestly going 10 for the vibes here.
I'll bump it up to a 10. I think this team is definitely up there. It's not a Zach Edey team, but it
Right.
doesn't need to be that anymore.
Exactly. And I honestly think this team is a lot deeper than it was this past year, too. Um, I know you talked about the starting lineup. I'm pretty much there with you in agreeing with how that lineup's going to work out. But this team has a chance to be electric with the shot making, the play making you're going to get from Braden. And of course, I mean, they're going to be raining threes between Braden, Fletch, Omer Meyer. I'm sure Oscar Clough has a 3-point shot in his bag too, so that's going to be interesting to see. I know TKR's even talked about adding a 3-point shot to his arsenal, so that's going to be cool to see too. But again, I'm really excited to see how the Boilermakers play this year.
Definitely.
But I think that's going to take care of everything we have on the state of Purdue's program going into the next year. As always, if you like our content, please engage with it in any way you can. Until next episode, we'll see you all next time.